Hello, welcome to Dracula in Russian Lesson 12. If you have not listened to Lesson 11, please click on it now. If you are new to the channel, please click on Lesson 1.
The town seemed as dead, for not a soul did I see. I rejoiced that it was so, for I wanted no witness of Bedni Lucy's condition. The time and distance seemed endless, and my knees trembled, and my breath came labored as I toiled up the endless steps to the abbey. I must have gone fast, and yet it seemed to me as if my feet were weighted with lead, and as though every joint in my body were rusty. When I got almost to the top, I could see the seat and the white figure, for I was now close enough to distinguish it even through the spells of shadow. There was undoubtedly something, long and black, bending over the half-reclining white figure. I called in fright, "Lucy! Lucy!" and something raised a head, and from where I was I could see a white so and red, gleaming glaza. Lucy did not answer, and I ran on to the entrance of the churchyard. As I entered, the church was between me and the seat, and for a minute or so I lost sight of her. When I came in view again, the cloud had passed, and the moonlight struck so brilliantly that I could see Lucy half reclining with her head lying over the back of the seat. She was quite alone, and there was not a sign of any living thing about. This is a reminder. Remember, sleep translates to sput. This is a reminder. Remember, night translates to noch. This is a reminder. Remember should translates to dolzhen. This is a reminder. Remember once translates to adin ras. This is a reminder. Remember eyes translates to glaza. When I bent over her, I could see that she was still asleep. Her lips were parted, and she was breathing, not softly as usual with her, but in long, heavy gasps, as though striving to get her lungs full at every breath. As I came close, she put up her hand in her sput and pulled the collar of her nightdress close around her throat. Whilst she did so, there came a malinki shudder through her, as though she felt the cold. I flung the warm shawl over her and drew the edges tight round her neck, for I dreaded lest she dolzhen get some deadly chill from the noche air, unclad as she was. I feared to wake her all at adin ras, so, in order to have my hands free that I might help her, I fastened the shawl at her throat with a big safety pin. But I must have been clumsy in my anxiety and pinched or pricked her with it, for by and by, when her breathing became quieter, she put her hand to her throat again and moaned. When I had her carefully wrapped up, I put my shoes on her feet and then began very gently to wake her. At first she did not respond, but gradually she became more and more uneasy in her sput, moaning and sighing occasionally. At last, as time was passing fast, and for many other reasons I wished to get her home at adin ras, I shook her more forcibly, till finally she opened her glaza and awoke. She did not seem surprised to see me, as of course she did not realize all at adin ras where she was. Lucy always wakes prettily, and even at such a time, when her body must have been chilled with cold, and her mind somewhat appalled at waking unclad in a churchyard at noche, she did not lose her grace. She trembled a malinki and clung to me. When I told her to come at adin ras with me home, she rose without a word, with the obedience of a child. As we passed along, the gravel hurt my feet, and Lucy noticed me wince. She stopped and wanted to insist upon my taking my shoes, but I would not. However, when we got to the pathway outside the churchyard where there was a puddle of water remaining from the storm, I daubed my feet with mud, using each foot in turn on the other, so that as we went home, no one, in case we dolzhen meet anyone, dolzhen notice my bare feet. This is a reminder. Remember once translates to adin ras. This is a reminder. Remember door translates to dvied. This is a reminder. Remember should translates to dolzhen. This is a reminder. Remember how translates to kuk. Fortune favored us, and we got home without meeting a soul. Adin ras we saw a man who seemed not quite sober, passing along a street in front of us, but we hid in a dvied till he had disappeared up an opening such as there are here, steep malinki closes, or winds, as they call them in Scotland. My heart beat so loud all the time that sometimes I thought I dolzhen faint. I was filled with anxiety about Lucy, not only for her health, lest she dolzhen suffer from the exposure, but for her reputation in case the story dolzhen get wind. When we got in, and had washed our feet and had said a prayer of thankfulness together, I tucked her into bed. Before falling asleep, she asked, even implored, me not to say a word to anyone, even her mother, about her sleepwalking adventure. I hesitated at first to promise, but on thinking of the state of her mother's health, and the knowledge of such a thing would fret her, and thinking, too, of such a story might become distorted, nay, infallibly would, in case it dulge and leak out, I thought it wiser to do so. I hope I did right. I have locked the dvier, and the key is tied to my wrist, so perhaps I shall not be again disturbed. Lucy is sleeping soundly. The reflex of the dawn is high and far over the sea. Noon. All goes well. Lucy slept till I woke her and seemed not to have even changed her side. The adventure of the noche does not seem to have harmed her. On the contrary, it has benefited her, for she looks better this morning than she has done for weeks. I was sorry to notice that my clumsiness with the safety pin hurt her. Indeed, it might have been serious, for the skin of her throat was pierced. I must have pinched up a piece of loose skin and have transfixed it, for there are two malinki red points like pinpricks, and on the band of her nightdress was a drop of blood. When I apologized and was concerned about it, she laughed and petted me, and said she did not even feel it. Fortunately, it cannot leave a scar, as it is so tiny. This is a reminder. Remember how translates to kak. In the next paragraph, we are introducing a new word. The word good translates to haroshi. This is a reminder. Remember, door translates to dvier. This is a reminder. Remember, once translates to adin ras. Same Dane night. We passed a happy Dane. The air was clear and the sun bright, and there was a cool breeze. We took our lunch to Mulgrave Woods, Mrs. Westenra driving by the road and Lucy and I walking by the cliff path and joining her at the gate. I felt a malinki sad myself, for I could not but feel absolutely happy it would have been had Jonathan been with me. But there, I must only be patient. In the evening we strolled in the casino terrace and heard some haroshi music by Spohr and Mackenzie, and went to bed early. Lucy seems more restful than she has been for some time, and fell asleep at adin ras. I shall lock the dvier and secure the key the same as before, though I do not expect any trouble tonight. This is a reminder. Remember, sleep translates to sput. This is a reminder. Remember, door translates to dvier. This is a reminder. Remember how translates to kak, 12th of August. My expectations were wrong, for twice during the noche I was wakened by Lucy trying to get out. She seemed, even in her sput, to be a malinki impatient at finding the dvier shut, and went back to bed under a sort of protest. I woke with the dawn, and heard the birds chirping outside of the window. Lucy woke too, and I was glad to see was even better than on the previous morning. All her stare gaiety of manner seemed to have come back, and she came and snuggled in beside me and told me all about Arthur. I told her how anxious I was about Jonathan, and then she tried to comfort me. Well, she succeeded somewhat, for though sympathy can't alter facts, it can help to dilate them more bearable. August. Another quiet Dane, and to bed with the key on my wrist as before. Again I awoke in the noche, and found Lucy sitting up in bed, still asleep, pointing to the window. I got up quietly, and pulling aside the blind, looked out. It was brilliant moonlight, and the soft effect of the light over the sea and sky, merged together in one veliki, silent mystery, was beautiful beyond words. Between me and the moonlight flitted a veliki bat, coming and going in veliki whirling circles. Adin ras or twice it came quite close, but was, I suppose, frightened at seeing me, and flitted away across the harbor towards the abbey. When I came back from the window, Lucy had lain down again and was sleeping peacefully. She did not stir again all noche. This is a reminder. Remember, maid translates to zdelo. 14 August. On the East Cliff, reading and writing all day, Lucy seems to have become as much in love with the spot as I am, and it is hard to get her away from it when it is time to come home for lunch or tea or dinner. This afternoon she's still a funny remark. We were coming home for dinner, and had come to the top of the steps up from the west pier and stopped to смотреть at the view, as we generally do. The setting sun, low down in the sky, was just dropping behind Kettleness. The red light was thrown over on the East Cliff and the Stare Abbey, and seemed to bathe everything in a beautiful rosy glow. We were silent for a while, and suddenly Lucy murmured as if to herself, "This is a reminder. Remember, eyes translates to glaza. This is a reminder. Remember, face translates to litso. This is a reminder. Remember, room translates to komnata. His red glaza again, they are just the same. It was such an odd expression, coming apropos of nothing, that it quite startled me. I slewed round a malinki, so as to see Lucy well without seeming to stare at her, and saw that she was in a half-dreamy state, with an odd smatret on her litso that I could not quite delete out. So I said nothing, but followed her glaza. She appeared to be looking over at our own seat, whereon was a dark figure seated alone. I was a malinki, startled myself, for it seemed for an instant as if the stranger had veliki glaza like burning flames, but a second smatret dispelled the illusion. The red sunlight was shining on the windows of St. Mary's Church behind our seat, and as the sun dipped there was just sufficient change in the refraction and reflection to delete it appear as if the light moved. I called Lucy's attention to the peculiar effect, and she became herself with a start, but she looked sad all the same. It may have been that she was thinking of that terrible noche up there. We never refer to it, so I said nothing, and we went home to dinner. Lucy had a headache and went early to bed. I saw her asleep and went out for a malinki stroll myself. I walked along the cliffs to the westward and was full of sweet sadness, for I was thinking of Jonathan. When coming home, it was then bright moonlight, so bright that, though the front of our part of the crescent was in shadow, everything could be well seen. I threw a glance up at our window and saw Lucy's head leaning out. I thought that perhaps she was looking out for me, so I opened my handkerchief and waved it. She did not notice or delete any movement whatever. Just then, the moonlight crept round an angle of the building, and the light fell on the window. There distinctly was Lucy with her head lying up against the side of the windowsill and her glaza shut. She was fast asleep, and by her, seated on the windowsill, was something that looked like a good-sized bird. I was afraid she might get a chill, so I ran upstairs. But as I came into the komnata, she was moving back to her bed, fast asleep and breathing heavily. She was holding her hand to her throat, as though to protect it from cold. This is a reminder. Remember, door translates to dved. I did not wake her, but tucked her up warmly. I have taken care that the dved is locked and the window securely fastened. She looks so sweet as she sleeps, but she is paler than is her wont, and there is a drawn, haggard smatret under her glaza which I do not like. I fear she is fretting about something. I wish I could find out what it is. In the next paragraph, we are introducing a new word. The word after translates to posle. This is a reminder. Remember, por translates to bedni. Rose later than usual. Lucy was languid and tired, and slept on posle we had been called. We had a happy surprise at breakfast. Arthur's father is better and wants the marriage to come off soon. Lucy is full of quiet joy, and her mother is glad and sorry at Adin Ras. Later on in the day she told me the cause. She is grieved to lose Lucy as her very own, but she is rejoiced that she is soon to have someone to protect her. Bedni, dear, sweet lady. She confided to me that she has got her death warrant. She has not told Lucy, and Zdelomi promised secrecy. Her doctor told her that within a few months, at most, she must die, for her heart is weakening. At any time, even now, a sudden shock would be almost sure to kill her. Ah, we were wise to keep from her the affair of the dreadful noche of Lucy's sleepwalking. This is a reminder. Remember, door translates to dved. This is a reminder. Remember, room translates to komnata. 7th of August. No diary for 2 whole days. I have not had the heart to write. Some sort of shadowy pall seems to be coming over our happiness. No news from Jonathan, and Lucy seems to be growing weaker, whilst her mother's hours are numbering to a close. I do not understand Lucy's fading away as she is doing. She eats well and sleeps well, and enjoys the fresh air. But all the time the roses in her cheeks are fading, and she gets weaker and more languid day by day. At noche I hear her gasping as if for air. I keep the key of our dved always fastened to my wrist at noche, but she gets up and walks about the komnata and sits at the open window. Last noche I found her leaning out when I woke up, and when I tried to wake her I could not. She was in a faint. When I managed to restore her, she was as weak as water and cried silently between long, painful struggles for breath. When I asked her how she came to be at the window, she shook her head and turned away. I trust her feeling ill may not be from that unlucky prick of the safety pin. I looked at her throat just now as she lay asleep, and the tiny wounds seem not to have healed. They are still open, and if anything, larger than before, and the edges of them are faintly white. They are like malinki white dots with red centers. Unless they heal within a day or two, I shall insist on the doctor seeing about them. Letter, Samuel F. Billington and Sons, Solicitors, Whitby, to Messrs. Carter, Patterson and Co., London. 17th of August. Dear Sirs, herewith please receive invoice of goods sent by Veliki Northern Railway. Same are to be delivered at Carfax, near Purfleet, immediately on receipt at Goods Station, King's Cross. The house is at present empty, but enclosed please find keys, all of which are labeled. This is a reminder. Remember should translates to Dolgen. You will please deposit the boxes, 50 in number, which form the consignment, in the partially ruined building forming part of the house and marked A on rough diagram enclosed. Your agent will easily recognize the locality, as it is the ancient chapel of the mansion. The goods leave by the train at 9:30 tonight, and will be due at King's Cross at 4:30 tomorrow afternoon. As our client wishes the deliveries deal as soon as possible, we shall be obliged by your having teams ready at King's Cross at the time named, and forthwith conveying the goods to destination. In order to obviate any delays possible through any routine requirements as to payment in your departments, we enclose check herewith for £10, receipt of which please acknowledge. Dolgen the charge be less than this amount, you can return balance. If greater, we shall at a dinar us send check for difference on hearing from you. You are to leave the keys on coming away in the main hall of the house, where the proprietor may get them on his entering the house by means of his duplicate key. Pray do not take us as exceeding the bounds of business courtesy in pressing you in all ways to use the utmost expedition. We are, dear sirs, faithfully yours, Samuel F. Billington and Son. Letter, Messrs. Carter, Patterson and Co., London, to Messrs. Billington and Son, Whitby. 21 August. Dear sirs, we beg to acknowledge £10 received and to return check £1.17. 9D, amount of overplus, as shown in receipted account herewith. Goods are delivered in exact accordance with instructions, and keys left in parcel in main hall as directed. We are, dear sirs, yours respectfully, Pro Carter, Patterson and Co., Mina Murray's Journal. In the next paragraph, we are introducing a new word. The word way translates to sposob. 18th August. I am happy today, and right sitting on the seat in the churchyard. Lucy is ever so much better. Last noche she slept well all noche, and did not disturb me, I din ras. The roses seem coming back already to her cheeks, though she is still sadly pale and wan-looking. If she were in any sposob anemic, I could understand it, but she is not. She is in gay spirits and full of life and cheerfulness. All the morbid reticence seems to have passed from her, and she has just reminded me, as if I needed any reminding, of that noche, and that it was here, on this very seat, I found her asleep. As she told me, she tapped playfully with the heel of her boot on the stone slab and said, "This is a reminder. Remember, poor translates to bedni. This is a reminder. Remember, way translates to sposob. My bedni malinki feet didn't deal it much noise then. I dare say bedni stari Mr. Swales would have told me that it was because I didn't want to wake up Geordie." As she was in such a communicative humor, I asked her if she had dreamed at all that noche. Before she answered, that sweet, puckered smatrait came into her forehead, which Arthur, I call him Arthur from her habit, says he loves. And indeed, I don't wonder that he does. Then she went on in a half-dreaming kind of sposob, as if trying to recall it to herself. I didn't quite dream, but it all seemed to be real. I only wanted to be here in this spot. I don't know why, for I was afraid of something. I don't know what. I remember, though I suppose I was asleep, passing through the streets and over the bridge. A fish leaped as I went by, and I leaned over to smadrete at it, and I heard a lot of dogs howling. The whole town seemed as if it must be full of dogs all howling at once, as I went up the steps. Then I had a vague memory of something long and dark with red glaza, just as we saw in the sunset, and something very sweet and very bitter all around me at Adin Ras. And then I seemed sinking into deep green water, and there was a singing in my ears, as I have heard there is to drowning men, and then everything seemed passing away from me. My soul seemed to go out from my body and float about the air. I seemed to remember that Adin Ras, the West Lighthouse, was right under me, and then there was a sort of agonizing feeling, as if I were in an earthquake, and I came back and found you shaking my body. I saw you do it before I felt you. Then she began to laugh. It seemed a malinki uncanny to me, and I listened to her breathlessly. I did not quite like it, and thought it better not to keep her mind on the subject, so we drifted on to other subjects, and Lucy was like her starry self again. When we got home, the fresh breeze had braced her up, and her pale cheeks were really more rosy,